I've always been the type of person to be my own worst critic. Any mistake or misjudgment that I've ever made, I've always picked apart and dissected. And if I ever wasn't sure which side of the equation I fell on, whether or not I was in the wrong or not, I would always make sure to get other people's opinions, unbiased opinions. But one thing I've come to realize lately, that my collective, the people that are vibrating at the level I'm vibrating at, we've had this change, okay? And you can notice this change a lot when you are watching tarot. At the beginning of our awakening or our spiritual journey, we could see ourselves as the individual that was being taken advantage of in the situation. Not because we never knew our wrongs or because we didn't know our wrongs in that situation, but because that even though we might have made mistakes or done wrong things in that equation, the overall was because we were being taken advantage of or mistreated. And that's why we were doing certain things. And then when we were watching them, we could see ourselves in that position, and we would place certain people in the other position, and it was this person that we needed to release in our life and that person that we needed to release in our life. And Spirit, is there another person I'm not seeing that I need to release in my life? But recently, we've been able to recognize ourselves as the people that were taking advantage of us. We were able to recognize that we played not just a small mistake, but we played huge parts in other people's lives that also made us being the person that was taking advantage of them. I know I'm not saying it right, but basically, we're able to see ourselves in a different light. Even though the situation is still the same, we understand that the energy that that person was coming with, we also held that same energy at one point in that dynamic. And we both, coming into the situation at some point of the dynamic, with the energy of fear, a fear-based programming that played parts in the reason why the dynamic wasn't working or didn't work. And had we come into the situation or remained in the situation the entire time with the energy of love, the dynamic might have been a whole different situation. It might have had a completely different outcome, right? Because if somebody comes at you with lies and hate, if you show them hate back, it's only going to continue more hate, right? But if you respond out of an energy of love, it changes the trajectory of the situation in some way. They might not appreciate you coming at it with love at first, and they might have to go quiet. But if they continued coming at you with hate, it would make them look bad, and they don't want to look bad, right? So situations have now become less them against us and us against them, or us against them and them against us, and more of every single person had a part to play and the reason why the situation turned out the way it did. And had anybody at any time changed their perspective and came at it with a place of love, the situation would have been different, or could have been different at least. So it's not about that individual, and it's not about the other individual, or even that individual, or in this individual. It's not about any particular person. It's about all of us. It's about the energy that we bring forth, and whether we're basing that on love or fear. I hope that makes sense. Because say you and somebody else gets into another argument, and the reason you got into the argument might have been something that would have been understandable, because say you told this person over and over again you didn't like this thing that they did, and yet they keep doing it. We get into this argument, but a little time goes by and the argument gets more heated and more stressful, and stress happens to be one of your triggers, and you think you've handled stress decently ever since it became one of your triggers, because you've tried to work through it. But little did you know that every time you get too stressed to a certain point, you say you just need to go walk away or go do something else, but in reality, you have actually disassociated and left your body. You went unconscious, or you fainted, or whatever, right? But for some reason, you block this out of your head. You block this out of your mind, out of your thoughts. So you have no awareness, no remembrance of ever getting to the point where you fell unconscious or fainted, because you didn't realize that you were disassociating. You thought you were just, telling the other person you just needed to go for a walk or something, and then that was it. So you go the rest of your relationship or friendship holding a grudge on this other person because you think that they never took the time or effort to ever finish out that conversation with you and make things right. But when in reality, you guys might have never finished that conversation out, but that person sat there with you and had your head on their lap and was rubbing your back and telling you it was okay until you were able to come out of that disassociation. They took care of you when you were unconscious and you never even knew about it. And yet they didn't rub that into your face, and they didn't make you seem like you didn't see them for, all that they do for you, or see them for their worth, because they never decided to throw that in your face. They didn't want you to think anything about it if you weren't able to handle it already. You were fainting or disassociating for a reason, and they thought that it was better for you to figure that out on your own rather than to bring it up, because obviously your body couldn't handle it in the first place, correct? So when I say that my collective is now seeing things in a different light, it's because we've now seen every situation and every circumstance that happens in every situation from a million different perspectives now. Perspectives that we didn't even know were possible until now. That our conscious awareness wasn't even able to conceive of that before, or even picture that happening before. We had a whole different story implanted in our heads that we thought was 100% concrete, when in fact it wasn't even 60% concrete. And now we see things in the correct picture. And although we obviously still weren't wrong in that situation, we were having an argument or, a discussion with this other person because of something that they continued to do over and over again. But we were still in that relationship, in that friendship, with unhealed trauma that led to us holding a grudge on them for something that they didn't do to you, that they actually were helping you in that situation. But yet you never knew, because you never knew any of this was going to happen, or any of this had happened because of your disassociation. If that makes sense?